you all probably know each other pretty well, but maybe I could even start as people are joining the meeting and get a little bit of an intro from everyone so that I know who you are, what you do, what you're a part of, and then as more people come in, they can also introduce themselves, and so we'll be efficient that way. So, Robert, why don't you start?
What would you like to know? Just my background or why I'm here?
Well, what you are involved with in the town in Grafton? Like, what are your interests?
Okay. So I'm on the Town Historical Commission. I'm on the
Okay.
board with the Grafton Historical Society, so I'm very interested in all things in Grafton's history and try to stay active with projects there on both the board and the commission. And I'm also the president of Grafton Land Trust. So we have 911 acres of open space protected in Grafton, and we're looking to expand it. And so Community Preservation Act funds can be used for both historic preservation and open space, along with a few other things.
So this is a big interest for you.
Yes.
Great. All right. Gina.
Hi, I'm Gina DeLon. I'm on the Rec Commission. I don't know how long, over 10 years maybe. I was the rep on the Rec Commission rep on CPC several years ago. I don't remember when. I'm also a special ed administrator in a neighboring town. So I was on the Super Park Committee that's now kind of gone over to the Rec Department. So that's been one reason that I've been a big supporter of the park and working with CPC to try to make that happen. So that's my background.
Great, thank you. Paul. You're muted, Paul. Are you able to unmute yourself?
Yes.
All right, great.
So, yeah, I'm one of the at-large members of CPC.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a historical interest too. I've been on the historical commission in the past for several years. I serve on the historic district commission as the clerk. I am involved with a project right now in town to revitalize the common. In the past, I've been involved with the project on the townhouse for the same purpose, to make it handicapped accessible and fire compliant.
Okay.
So that's kind of my background.
Great, thanks. Brooke.
Yes.
An introduction. Let me know who you are and what you do. All the hats you wear.
And what I do?
Well, yeah.
It depends on who you ask what I do. Brooke Paget was on the board of selectmen for a while and finance committee. Helped actually bring in the CPC at town meeting. It was quite a fight for those people who were there. Now it's a great asset to the town, but at the time it was hard to get it on. I wish we had done the 3% instead of the 1.5%. I just was appointed yesterday. I haven't even been sworn in to the CPC. This is my first meeting.
Great.
And welcome to you, Brooke.
What else do you want to? That's all I do.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let's see who's next on my screen. Jen.
Yeah, hi guys. Jen Anderson, Recreation Director, been in there for almost 5 years. And so becoming well versed in CPC with the park that we are proposing at town meeting, amongst other things that will hopefully come in the future.
Great. Do you live in town?
I do, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So do you have any other, are you involved in any other like user groups in recreation? Like non-official?
No, this job takes everything I pretty much got.
Got it. All right. Justin. Are you there, Justin? We'll
You're on
come
mute
back.
if you're talking, Justin.
I'm unable to unmute him, so I don't know if
You know,
Oh.
you may have stepped away.
Margaret.
Okay. Margaret, yeah.
I'm only observing. I'm a citizen.
Okay.
So put me back on mute. I'm just watching the meeting.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. If you'd like, we can get started. So welcome. My name is Roberta Cameron. I'm a consultant working for the Community Preservation Committee to prepare an update of the town's community preservation plan. So I'm actually going to we're going to start off this evening with a bit of a presentation, and then we'll go to a, then we'll ask for you to provide your input. And those of you who are just observing, you are welcome to also speak up if you like. You can even give your comments in the chat if you prefer, rather than by speaker or video, or you can send them to us, and we'll take your input gladly any way that you'll provide it. But with that, I'm going to share the screen so that I can begin a presentation. Host disabled participant screen sharing. So I'm going to have to ask for your permission to share the screen. Are you able to do that?
Can you share it now, Roberta?
Let me try. Yes, yes, I can.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to figure all of this out, and then we're all going to be able to meet together again in person.
That would be the best thing. And slideshow.
It's like riding a bike.
Okay, welcome. This is it, the Town of Grafton Community Preservation Plan Update Workshop, Open Space and Recreation. So for those of you who haven't done this before, people who attended the last committee meeting, we did a trial run through of this, so we learned how to do it. But we're going to have some live polling throughout the presentation. And the way that the live polling works, and you can do this from home anonymously, if you happen to be watching on cable television, you can participate in the live polling. It'll get to us. So you take out your phone and you text to 22333 is the number that the phone number that you text to, and you use the phrase COGINC 311 to join the live poll. And you just text COGINC 311 to that phone number, and you will be able to answer our questions. So the first question kind of gives us an idea of who's participating, who we're hearing from in this forum. So where in Grafton do you live? Let me know if anyone is trying and frustrated that they cannot respond to the text. I'll just give this one more moment.
I see you talking, Bruce. I didn't know if you were talking, sorry, Brooke. I don't know if you're talking to us or just internally.
I think mine showed up for a B, so I think mine's working.
Great. I'm going to guess that we have about 4 respondents so far to this survey. But if you're all satisfied that you've been able to respond, I'm going to move on to the next question. All right. Next question. Tell me, have you spent more time outdoors since the COVID-19 crisis began? I know I have. Or at least I try to. And next question. Activities that you like to do outdoors, specifically since CPA can only fund outdoor recreation. We're looking for outdoor kinds of activities that people do. Unfortunately, you can only pick one. So if you want to tell us about something else that you like to do that isn't on the list, you'll have to speak up and tell us verbally.
I did an E for fun because it's everything.
Great. All right. So I've got one more question that kind of helps us to know who is participating. So the reason why we ask, and nobody is going to know who's answering the question, but the reason why we ask is so that later on we can look at who participated in the forum and kind of keep track of which voices in the community are being represented.
So is this the age inside our head or on the outside?
This is the age that you report to the US Census.
Oh, that one. Okay.
Yeah. I hope that everyone has actually responded to the census, that this is a great time to put out a reminder that if you haven't done it, it's time to. All right. So then the next thing we are going to do is kind of run through a pop quiz about the Community Preservation Act. So we're going to test your knowledge. First of all, you can tell us how much you think you know, and then we'll test your knowledge and see how much you actually know about CPA and CPA in Grafton. Nobody's going for I know it all.
I vaguely thought we were going to change that wording.
Oh. All right, so pop quiz. When did Grafton adopt CPA? I bet some of you guys actually do know it all. So the choices here, I'll show you on the next slide why we picked these choices. 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, or 2004. No guesses. Nobody will know if you're the one who gets it wrong. Okay. So a little bit of history about CPA in Grafton. So in 2000, that was the first choice, the Community Preservation Act passed statewide. The state legislature passed the Community Preservation Act. So in 2001, Grafton was actually one of the first communities to adopt CPA at your fall town meeting. So you were very quick to get out the gate, despite how difficult, Brooke, you said it was to get it passed. You were still one of the first. Other communities have spent 20 years trying to catch up. So in 2002, the surcharge went into effect and you started collecting the revenues, and the local bylaw was established, which created the Community Preservation Committee. So the committee was first appointed in 2003, and you funded your first projects in 2003. And then in 2004, you prepared your first CPA plan. And that's the plan that this project is updating. So it's been long enough. So the next question, you all know this. What is the percent of your local CPA surcharge? And in fact, you're correct, 1.5% on your property tax bill, with exemptions for the first 100,000 property value, and people low income. Actually, I think it's, you don't have the middle income seniors. That's an error that I need to correct on this slide. You have a low income exemption in Grafton. And the average surcharge on single family homes for 2020 is $79. So that's partially matched with state community preservation funds that are distributed among all the participating communities every year. In 2020, the match was 23.9%, and who knows what it's going to be in next year. In 2020, actually, that was the 2019 match. So again, I apologize, I've got to change the wording. 2019 match was 23.9%, and or about $108,000 came to Grafton.
Roberta, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is that the first 100,000 value and in the exemptions, is that this part of the CPA state program or what we adopted as a town?
What you adopted as a town, that was an option. So the state program gives some options that towns can select. So you can choose a surcharge anywhere between 1% and 3. And you can choose whether or not to exempt the first $100,000 of property value, and you can choose whether to allow low-income residents to apply for an exemption, which they must do annually in order to get their exemption. So a little bit more about your local CPA. All of you know this, but there may be people watching this presentation who might not be as familiar. You have 9 members on the committee. The committee decides how to use the funding, what projects to recommend each year for funding. And the recommendations of the Community Preservation Committee go to town meeting to be approved in order for the funds to be spent. And the Community Preservation Committee is also responsible for evaluating community needs and priorities. So since you last did this in 2004, part of what we're looking to do now is to establish a process by which the committee can undertake more frequent updates of its community preservation plan on its own. And so the committee has also established a grant application process, which all of you are familiar with, by which projects are proposed and evaluated and recommended for funding. Quickly, you know the parameters. There are program areas: open space and recreation, historic preservation, and affordable housing. A minimum of 10% of the funds must be spent in each of those program areas. Up to 5% can be spent on administration, and the remaining funds can be spent in any program area. There is lots more to say about that, but I don't need to talk about it all now. You can read the plan when it's completed for more explanation of how that works. So in the beginning, the town, so all together in the history that the town has had CPA, you've generated close to $8 million in revenue for projects within these program areas. In the first few years, the state match was 100%, and it's gone down since then to a low in 2018 of, I don't remember what the exact number was, about 18%. And it's gone back up a bit. The state has increased the revenue stream to the state's Community Preservation Trust Fund, from which this distribution comes. But we'll see what happens given the fiscal fallout from the COVID-19 crisis in the coming years.
And Roberta, that 7 million, that's all, is that 7 million inclusive of the state match and
Yes.
the town? Okay, thank you.
Yes. Yeah. So just an overview of past projects that have been funded by the town. There's a long list on the left-hand side of the screen. If you took the survey, a similar list was also included in the survey as a reminder of what you may have seen around town, improvements that have been made to date with CPA funds. So all in all, close to half of your CPA funds have been spent on historic preservation, and 43% have been spent on open space and recreation. It appears from this pie chart that you've only spent 9% of your revenues on affordable housing. In fact, there's a little bit of a distortion built into the pie chart because the pie chart includes projects which have been bonded. So the total amount that you've committed for those projects exceeds the revenue that you've actually raised to date. So the total commitment, the amount that you've spent on affordable housing has been a clean 10%, but it has only been 9% of the total funds that you've committed of CPA funds to date. So that concludes my overview of Community Preservation Act. So next we'll kind of give a walkthrough what the existing conditions are in the town and what the resources are pertaining to open space and recreation. So as a bit of context, you have population that has grown quite dramatically toward the end of the 20th century and beginning of since 2000. The population growth has slowed down since 2010. The red dot on this chart shows the most recent population estimate, which is about 17,000 people, give or take. And the population growth in the light blue line is projected to continue to increase over the next 20 years. So just kind of some pictures of, you know, what does your population look like? You have about 37% of your households have children. 23% are households that are headed by seniors. Non-family households are people, generally either people who are living alone or unmarried people who are living together. They may be roommates or unmarried partners. These are definitions provided by the US Census. They're not our definitions. The proportion of individuals living alone is actually 24%. That's within that 31% of non-family households. So that means that there's about 7% of those unrelated people living together. And about 9% of your population are people with disabilities, including, and of your senior population, people over the age of 65, actually 28% of your senior population report having disabilities. According to American Communities Survey, that's what ACS stands for at the bottom of the screen, which is the US Census estimates of population characteristics that they undertake every year in between the decennial census. So one other interesting thing that we see demographically is disparity in household incomes. Whereas the median income in Grafton altogether, I actually don't have that number off the top of my head, but the where family income, for households that are families, the median income is $130,000, compared with non-families, again, primarily people living alone, the median income is just $49,000. And for senior households in particular, and those include a lot of the people who are living alone, the median income is $39,000. So there's a real disparity that is something to think about with respect to affordable housing, but also thinking these demographics are interesting to think about in terms of open space and recreation. Do the facilities enable people of all ages and all abilities to be able to use the town's open, passive, and active recreation facilities? So looking at what the town's assets are with respect to open space. I like this map that was taken from your 2001 master plan. It was prepared by landscape architect Walter Kudnowski. It shows a great illustration of kind of the highlights of what are the important resources, primarily open space, but also some historic resources throughout the community. So in summary, you have a great diversity of natural resources, the rivers, lakes, ponds, marshes, the critical wildlife habitats, including those water resources, as well as the marshes and wetlands and forested areas. And very importantly, drinking water, which supplies all of the town's residents through an aquifer underlying the town. And public wells. You also have historic open spaces, which include the Blackstone Canal, industrial infrastructure along both of the major rivers running through the town, the town common, cemeteries, and archaeological sites. And your open space and recreation plan, which is, I believe, completed in draft form, I don't know that it's been accepted yet, identifies approximately 3,000 acres of open space, not all of which is protected open space. There's about 1,400 acres of town-owned land. State-owned land is about 100 acres. The Grafton Land Trust owns about 600 acres. And then other institutions, including Tufts University, have approximately 600 acres. About 500 of those acres are owned by Tufts University. And then there are also about 800 acres that are protected, not really protected, that are assessed under Chapter 61, which enables property owners to pay reduced property taxes as long as their land remains in agricultural, forest, or recreational use. And should that land be taken out of that designation, the town would have the right of first refusal to purchase it, and the back taxes would be owed. So that's an overview of your open space resources. On the recreation side, you've got numerous playgrounds, athletic fields, and courts. You've created, well, you have the town common, obviously, and you've kind of created another common in the form of Mill Villages Park. And you have many areas that are available for water-based recreation, both for swimming, boating, fishing, all the things that people like to do with water-based recreation. And numerous trails. I wasn't able to find any estimate of the extent of your trail network, although if somebody wanted to throw a number out at me, I would love to include that in our in our inventory of assets. And it's always important also to identify who the local partners are, particularly with the Community Preservation Act planning, because the local partners are very likely the stakeholders who would be interested in CPA funding to make improvements to open space and recreation resources. We identified the Conservation Commission, Grafton Land Trust Recreation Department, Grafton Public Schools, Lions Club, and local athletic leagues and groups. So I would also like to hear comments if anybody has partners, well, actually, I'd love to hear comments about any of what we've just seen, your local, the assets in either category and the list of partners.
Yeah, this is Paul Scarlett.
Yep.
I would like to add the Grafton Historic District Commission. We've partnered together with them on a number of historical-based projects impacting the Common, which is their district. And then also the Historical Commission, which I know Bob is involved with, and I've been involved with in the past. I know John Stevens is on it. He's also on CPC. So that's a very historical stuff is important, as well as all this other stuff.
Well, there in the historic section, we identify those groups as partners, and that's actually something that we can do. I've done it both ways. I either have them listed in the place where they're most relevant, list them once, or have call out all of the partners, no matter how many times they show up on different pages, where they're relevant to that particular topic. So if you feel that it would be helpful to identify your historic commission and historic district commission as recreation and open space and conservation partners, we can certainly do that.
Yeah, I think they've been involved with lots of different things, but yeah, so certainly with open space, we've had some involvement. The Common is a prime example of that, and that's going on right now, and that's certainly within their jurisdiction. I would include it.
Okay.
Roberta?
I'll
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Robert. You can talk.
Yeah. So Roberta, I looked up, we put in the Grafton's trail system online last year into the Trailforks application, trailforks.com, or free app, and it has a handy dandy stats. So there are 121 kilometers of trails, 279 distinct trails. It used to be higher, but we consolidated some, so depending on what their definition of a trail is. And so I'll leave it to you to convert it to miles, but I know 100 kilometers is like what, 600 kilometers an hour on my speedometer is 63 miles an hour. So it's what, 75 miles of trails?
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Perfect. I knew somebody here would have it for me.
And Roberta, I don't know if it's in this format or what is considered a partner, but I mean, you know, the Parks and Cemetery Department.
Yes, thank
Which
you.
is, you know, separate, standalone from recreation is obviously pretty heavily involved in
For sure.
And you know, this is just kind of an oversight, but as we're talking this is why we have these conversations, because it helps to bring up things that I hadn't thought of. But the veterans agent, I don't know if your veterans agent plays this role, but in many communities, the veterans agent will partner with the cemetery commission to ensure that any markers of veterans are properly cared
and I
for.
believe they do, and obviously Parks Department is heavily involved in maintaining the veterans memorials as well. So
I think, isn't that the commission is called the Sailors and Soldiers Memorial Commission or something like that?
Yeah, something to that effect. Yeah.
And
Either
I
Sailors
was just gonna say,
Go ahead. Sorry.
I think they are doing that, but I don't know if it was anything official, so to speak, rather than the individual members and veterans going out and doing it. But if anyone out of people I know that might know that answer for sure, Jim Gallagher may know it, and he's on the CPC. So I think that's a good resource to at least get that confirmation. And
Roberta, I can, Justin, I know that stuff. Roberta, I'll send that to you in an email.
Great.
Okay.
But we shouldn't forget the library either.
Okay.
And I was just gonna echo what Paul said a few minutes ago as well, just that I think any partner that has had a significant contribution in a particular area definitely has some value to be listed in that area, even if it's not their primary area. I think that shows, to me, it shows respect to the partners and the people that are dedicating their time and effort, and in some cases money.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that feedback. All right, I'm going to go on and talk about eligibility criteria, I think that this is the open space and recreation is probably the area in which the eligibility criteria are the most well understood. But it's something that we're going to be highlighting is the actual definitions of the words acquisition, creation, preservation, rehabilitation, and restoration, and the definitions that are provided in the legislation for the words open space and recreation. So I'm not going to go over all of this right now, because I think that this is probably, as I said, the most well understood area is
Roberta,
open
can
space
I
and
ask
recreation. Yes.
for one additional bit of clarification for folks who may not be as aware?
Yeah.
That it was mentioned earlier that there were these 4 areas: open space, recreation, historic, and affordable housing, and they're all funded with 10%, but that's not completely true. Open space and recreation are kind of really one. So
Yes.
they get 10% between the 2 of those, whereas the other 2 get 10%. And I just want people
Correct.
to be aware of that.
Yes. There used to be more of a distinction between open space and recreation, where recreation was something that you could fund out of your free 70%. But now they're pretty much treated almost the same in the funds that you're allowed to spend for these. So as to getting to this point in the planning process, we have evaluated prior planning efforts, and numerous prior planning efforts we've looked at, but I've highlighted ones that particularly pertain to open space and recreation assets. And the efforts that we identified are the Open Space and Recreation Plan from 2020, North Grafton Transit Village in 2017, South Grafton Villages Master Plan in 2006, the 2001 Master Plan. And actually in this category, there are numerous other studies that I've seen that the town has done over the past 20 years that pertain to identifying opportunities and needs in these areas. So I've kind of assembled from these planning efforts what I have seen identified as opportunities and needs for open space and recreation. And I would love to have some discussion and get some feedback about what whether you feel that these are still relevant. Have we captured the needs that we should be capturing, or is this, I'd like to open it up for discussion. So in particular, we have acquire and restore resource areas. Resource areas defined as protecting drinking waters, expanding greenways, preserving heritage landscapes. For example, this isn't all inclusive. Creating outdoor community spaces and expanding recreational opportunities, including some additional parks and increasing access to water-based recreation. And would like to call out in particular creating multi-purpose trails, connecting local and regional amenities. And some of the significant trails that have been identified are the Blackstone River Greenway and a trail system in North Grafton that could connect regionally.
So Roberta, just to clarify or especially reiterate where this list of needs is, these needs are coming from these prior planning efforts, correct?
Correct.
And the 2001 master plan is the town master plan or the CPC plan?
That's the town's master plan.
Yeah, okay, that's perfect, thank you.
Yep.
Reiterating the fact that I think people question between open space and rec plan and such that to actually be able to show people to create additional parks is in here is great.
And I'll just chime in briefly as well on that point, just since I'm the planning board rep, the town master plan is usually something the planning board shepherds through the process once we get approval to do so, and because it does cost a chunk of change to generate it. And typically in Massachusetts, the master plans are done approximately every 10 years as a target, but our most recent one is 2001. So
yeah.
that was something I discussed when I joined the planning board last year, that I wanted to see us approach and try to update, but it certainly has not come to fruition yet.
Yeah. Yeah, I will say that I think a lot of the recommendations from the 2001 master plan have, it appears that you've made some progress in a lot of the areas that were identified there. The most useful thing that I found was actually that illustration that encapsulates your whole town in a way that none of these other plans could, because the other plans are all, you know, highlighting just one specific area. So that's the benefit of a master plan, is looking at the whole picture, which is something you haven't done recently. There are, so in terms of creating additional parks, some of the prior plans, in particular South Grafton plans, identify specific parcels where they think, where they felt that parks would be you know, appropriate to the benefit of interpreting historic resources that are located in those areas, of increasing access to water resources in those areas. So I was, you know, just took out as much as I could fit on a slide, but I think it's important to refer back to your prior planning for more details about what specific additional parks they're talking about. And so I'm actually going to stop the share for a moment and just maybe begin some conversation. If you'll give me a moment, I just need to pull up a file. Okay. So do you feel that there are, so we've already talked about if you feel that there are needs or priorities that were not reflected on the list that I showed?
Yeah, there's one the Historical Commission is working on, is walking tours, but we're looking to expand it just for not only historic, but walking in Grafton on non-trail areas. So, you know, where do we not have a sidewalk? How can I get from here to there walking or bicycling or something like that? So, like my father worked in the city of Sedona, Arizona for a while with Red Rock Pathways. They got lots and lots of federal funding for intermodal transportation systems, which turns out is bike paths and other things.
Yeah.
So that's something I don't think Grafton has enough of. There's, once you're in the woods, you can get anywhere in town. But if you're not in the woods, you can get run over.
Yeah.
We know. We just redid the commons so you wouldn't get run over. And it's still, you know, it's better, a lot better. So that's one. Thanks. So,
so just the providing resources that enable pedestrians to be able to get around town.
Yeah, there was a historical and recreation aspect of that, but yes, the pedestrian part of it is the major part, and we've been focusing on the historic interest part. But yeah, my comment is the larger pedestrian.
Mm-hmm.
Paul, do you remember there was a project that came before CPC a few years ago about the New England Village in North Grafton? Didn't that have a walking tour component to it? Because it was going to be up through that area of Washington Mills, and we thought we might be able to get access from Washington Mills to go the path back to the water. Am I dreaming this?
Yeah, we talked with Peter and Shirley Williams about that, but I don't think we followed through.
Okay.
At least the land trust has, because they have land, you know, but also they own Washington Mills.
Right. For some reason I thought that the Hanna family was doing something around that with the church and the community center that they have up there.
Yeah.
But that's
okay. That's another one. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm having audio issues, so you probably can't hear me very well.
Nope, we can hear you right now.
Yeah, it's rough.
It's
rough
crackly.
on my end too. Yeah, so there was a project New England Village. I know there were plans. I don't recall if there were any walking tours that were talked about. I do remember talking about walking tours at one point, but it could have been when I was on historical commission. It was a while ago.
Okay.
Nothing recent.
I have the previous 2 walking tour products that I can get to you, Joanne, or somebody.
Oh, great.
We have 400 copies of one of them and 1 copy of the other one. So we found the box in the back room.
Well, Rob, I'm going to connect you and Roberta after the meeting. So.
Great.
Okay, but just remember, I have some walking tour brochures. So.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, thank you.
So,
Another thing to bring up about, like the walking tour aspect, but just a slight tangent off that for bicycles. I know over the past year, I've had a few conversations with people that have had interest in, we have a handful of, bike trails in town, but most of them don't connect to each other in any meaningful or safe way. And I know at the fall, the select board had a goals meeting where they were discussing ideas for things that they may consider particular goals for them as far as things that they and their constituents have talked to them about, have wanted to see. One of the items that Doreen DeFazio had listed was, a few things relating to bicycles, like connecting, bike paths and bike trails. So there's a, steady flow, especially if there's any neighboring towns that have any bike trails that we might want to have a, conscious connection to, as well as, potentials for, do we want to see any bike racks in certain areas of town to, store bikes so people would ride one to those locations. Personally, I don't have as much of an interest in biking as many people do, but I know that that's certainly a need of many, a desire of many people as well. So, and I'm sure, Doreen's not on this meeting tonight, but I'm sure if Joanne, if you connect her with Roberta, Doreen may have thoughts to share as well.
great.
And Justin, just to be clear, was that road bikes or mountain bikes?
I think the conversation at the goals meeting was in relation to both. It was, mountain bikes certainly have a different, user base in general than, road bikes, but, most paths that would allow bikes would support a mountain bike as well as a road bike, but
but it's the other way around.
We
have lots of trails for mountain bikes, but the bicycles on the roads, some of the roads are kind of skinny and dangerous for a bicycle.
Yep.
The general consensus we've received from people in the land trust.
Great. So what I'm taking from this is that you'd like to see more connectivity in your bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure where possible.
How about this?
And I believe that's one of the goals of the open space and recreation plan that's in the draft. So yeah.
Yeah,
great.
It was sort of a conscious effort to have a system. So it's not just, oh, we have this and we have that, and let's connect them. It's like, what's the big plan? What do we have? Like Westboro has their hiking trail system. I don't know that they have a biking system, but can I get everywhere in town? Where can I get? What's the vision for that? Not just
and one thing that probably is just bears mentioning, which I'm sure most people here kind of have thought about as well, but over the last summer, I was on a work trip over to Whistler, British Columbia, Vancouver. And of course, those are beautiful mountains, trails. We, me and my, work team took a hike through essentially a mountain biking trail. And, at the end of it, we continued to walk past the main tourist attraction piece in there. And at the end of the trail, it opened up to basically a highway. There was no other, connection that we could see, for, connecting. And, the idea that, trails would, go to essentially nowhere and potentially dangerous spot is something that I would rather, I would like to avoid in Grafton where possible. So if someone is taking a trail, if there's a connection spot, they can, go to another place, in a safe manner. It doesn't have to necessarily be, right there, but just a, safe manner to get to the, next piece of a leg.
Yeah. Great. I'm going to change gears a little bit. Are there specific sites or resources that you consider to be under threat thinking probably on the side of conservation and open space, but maybe you can also suggest that there are recreation resources under threat as well. Paul, you're muted if you're talking to us.
Lower left.
Is having sound issues whenever I unmute. So hopefully you hear me. I would say the state buildings next to the Tufts properties. I know that the town's looking at those, so we want to make sure that the right thing happens there.
Yep, got that.
That's the 8 Pine Street, Paul?
Yeah, I believe that may be the interest. I'm not 100% sure.
With the development, the mixed use development.
Yeah,
So,
that we acquired the land from the state.
Can I just interrupt?
Here, so I'm hearing.
Hey, Paul, do me one favor. Somebody told me that sometimes if you shut off your video and then you come back on, for some unknown reason, it helps the audio. So the video is at the bottom left. So, yep.
Oh, there you go.
And then bring it back on and it might have helped. I'm sorry, Roberta, go ahead.
oh, okay. I was just going to say that I'm actually still waiting for more information about what is currently going on with the hospital, the former hospital building that's on the block right now. But according to the North Grafton Villages Master Plan, there are numerous remaining buildings that are still underutilized, may be candidates for adaptive reuse, preservation in the future. Some of them may be too far deteriorated by now for that to be feasible. So this might not be your only bite at the apple, this particular building.
Yeah, just so you know, we just received 4 bids. The Historical Commission is reviewing the 4 bids on the 8 Pine Street project property project bids for housing, businesses, and whatnot. So, yeah, Paul gives a thumbs up, so he's aware of the same thing. So that's sort of in play right now. I just got the call that the vet's coming, so I have to.
Well, thank you for participating. Very helpful, and we'll be in touch again.
Okay, thanks, guys. Sorry I had to leave. Yeah, bye.
Yeah, I know. I think it's the same location though. There was few things for 8 Pine Street that I remember seeing at the select board meeting last night. I think it was 8 Pine Street, but you know what I believe Tim said he recommended as an RTA. You know, was recommending for the select board to accept for town meeting to then vote on was a group called NOAH, NOAH, I believe it was.
Yep.
That was planning to do about 300 units with 25% of them affordable, and which would involve demolition of many of the buildings, like raising them to the ground, rebuilding.
Okay.
You know, which is not necessarily the most favorable for historic preservation, but it's what I believe I heard. I'm trying to remember that to quote it, but I'm having a little bit of trouble there.
That issue will be on the select board agenda most likely for next Tuesday night, Roberta. So I'll be able to get some information then.
Okay.
And
so that's go ahead.
I'm sorry. There's a parcel of land that Rob did not mention, and I don't know of the exact location, but it's around Silver Lake, and it's part of what we kind of refer to as the Robinson properties. And it would be part of the Silver Lake conservation area. And it is a parcel that I know the land trust has kept their eye on, that when that does come up for sale, it's something that the town would probably want to be able to jump on, because it's going to connect, and it's really going to preserve, it's going to connect some parcels we already have, and it's really going to preserve that whole frontage of Silver Lake. Hi, Jen.
Great. Thank you. So that kind of leads to the next question. Are you aware of specific initiatives to undertake open space and recreation projects. I know that Super Park is coming up at town meeting this coming, in this coming round. Do you see anything already in the pipeline coming down the line over the next 2 to 5 years?
Well, I can think, and I hate to bring it up because people probably don't want to hear it, but maintenance on the Grafton townhouse.
Maintenance on
I
which?
have a feeling that the Grafton townhouse. There's some
Townhouse.
that is a maintenance issue that needs to be addressed.
Okay.
You guys probably aren't catching this. And I have another one. That's a big one though.
Jen, is there, Jen Anderson, is there any need like on your list of fields or things like that?
Not yet. I don't believe so. I mean, our fields, struggle in general just because of where they are and the restrictions and what we can do to maintain them. So that would be part of us hopefully obtaining additional field space in general, and whether that comes across as maybe it's a purchase, right? With CPC, I don't. That's nothing. I think in the 2 to 5 year time frame that we're aware of. So.
Okay.
Can I clarify one thing about my last statement? I'm not talking about routine maintenance. I'm talking about long-term neglected maintenance, like the brick masonry is deteriorated and needs to be restored. So it's not. It is something that would qualify under CPC versus just wanted to clarify that.
Yep.
It can be confused.
Okay. So potentially, I'm going to classify the maintenance on the Grafton Townhouse under historic preservation. So I'm going to put a pin in that, but I'll come back to that next week. Obtaining additional field space for recreation. Another question I had is, are there any particular demographic groups in the town, say seniors or adult leagues or something or children for that matter, who are less well served by the town's existing resources? Areas in town that are not as well served in terms of these resources?
Can I jump in with one other quick possibility for Paul? Somebody, when try just turning your video off and not turning it back on, and that's no reflection on us seeing your face, Paul. But try that and then talk and see if it's better, because you have great stuff to offer, and it's really hard to hear you. I'm sorry, Roberta.
That's quite all right.
I'm highly insulted. I don't think it solved the problem.
Yeah, maybe a little bit actually. That might have.
But I'll leave it like this for you.
Yeah, it actually is easier to understand your words, even though it's still scratchy.
Okay. Well, still stay on mute and try and interject.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the only things I can think of offhand as just what people are not well served in town right now is just the idea of accessible open space type areas, or even playgrounds that will in theory be served by the super park if it is passed at town meeting for a lot of those needs. But if that is not passed, there's still that need that we're not meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that need being potentially filled in some of the existing parks as well, through various forms, but I don't know how well that can be done, and that doesn't really help our open space needs in that area as much.
All right. One area that the town has, I think, not put any CPA funding to date, but you could, and communities fall on, in different places on this matter, is funding for school playgrounds. because people think that it should come from a school budget, but where does the school budget come from? Actually, the same place as the rest of the town's budget. So there is not a dedicated capital fund from which school playgrounds are improved that is not competing with, you know, the capital improvements that the school buildings themselves are in need of.
Yeah, from where I sit at the moment, at least the school playgrounds that I visited seem to be in pretty good shape currently. Some are a little bit easier to access than others, like the school we have on North Street. The main playground area is down a big sloped hill, which is harder for some people to access. But it is, you know, I think the schools have a good setup with that right now. But I don't think it would hurt to reach out to either our superintendent or even the school committee chair to, you know, see if they share that thought, knowing that that could be a CPA funded resource.
Okay.
Can I make a point?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Can you hear me? Am I still staccato?
We can hear you. It's scratchy, but we can understand your words.
South Grafton Elementary actually came to us with a request for a project to fund a playground, what they called the playground, but it was very hard to really make a determination that it was actually a playground, because it was really repaving of a parking lot that they were also then going to use partially as a playground. And so we had a piece of the project that we felt we could fund, but another piece that we didn't think was appropriate. And we suggested they come back, and they didn't. But we're certainly open to those types of things and understand the issues with funding that kind of project. So.
Okay.
yeah, I'm just going to jump in real quick. I mean, sometimes with the schools, we do just, you know, as a committee in the past, we've had conversations about weighing the access issue, because the schools, when we do work, if we do work at the schools, those playgrounds are not available to anybody else but the schools, except for after school hours and weekends and in the summer. So sometimes, you know, it's just discussions we've had just in terms of best use of CPC money, because we want people to be able to use the facilities.
Although,
Yeah.
you know, and no matter where the playground is located, a household in town, Grafton residents who don't have children under the age of 12 are not going to be able to use those playgrounds probably ever. So you're still only serving a fraction of the population if you're funding playgrounds. So a question is, are there other demographic groups? I didn't see that the senior center offers outdoor recreation type programs that are ongoing right now. I wonder if there's clamoring for, or if there are any organized activities going on where seniors are getting outdoors.
That would be a great thing to ask Barb Connolly if she foresees them being able to use the community park, if that passes at town meeting.
No, thank you, Joanne. That's what I was going to add. I don't
Sorry.
think the senior center does that either, but that would be the hope, to be able to expand that for them there.
So expand what? Maybe give me a more background to that.
The outdoor fitness or outdoor programming for the senior center at that park.
At which park?
The community park that's being proposed.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, this is Christine. Can you hear me?
Yep, yep.
Hi, I'm a member of the Recreation Commission.
Yep.
I just, in terms of like the seniors, I'm a senior, and we have a very active pickleball group. I don't know if you've ever heard pickleball. There's about 20 of us, and that's, you know, and we're all seniors pretty much using that that facility right now. And I mean, that's one of the, we do have 3 courts right now, and nets. But I know that it's growing. It's growing. People are calling me and asking me about it. And, you know, it's becoming a very, very popular sport for seniors.
Yeah, it
So
is.
I see something like that. Like right now we have 3. I mean, I see that just growing.
Yeah,
The more
absolutely.
people find out about it, the more interest there is. You know, we have, like I said, right now about maybe 20, 25 in the group that play in the wintertime at the gym at the senior center, and that play outdoors during the summer and spring, summer, and fall season.
Yeah.
Where is the outside courts?
At Ferry Street,
Okay, thanks.
right by the tennis courts. There's one tennis court over there, and it's we had it was where the basketball courts are. There's still basketball court hoops there, but we have 3 lined playing fields right there, and then the town supplies us with the nets that
Thanks.
come on and off. So that's just my 2 cents about future.
So you
stuff.
feel that there could
I
be,
just,
do you feel that there could be demand for additional pickleball courts?
Yeah, with even lighting and stuff for night
Yeah.
play. And
I do have a question. I don't know if Christine or someone else on this call knows the answer, but do the seniors ever utilize the fields that are behind the senior center, like in the school fields that are there? Like I think I might have seen some people walking the perimeter of like the football field, but I don't know. You know, I don't
have an answer to that, only because I just turned 60, because during the coronavirus, so I haven't officially joined the senior center, which I will do as soon as they open. So I don't have an answer to that.
Yeah, I was actually really surprised to ask, like specifically about senior outdoor recreation, and was told there isn't really any. So even a walking group that meets and goes around the track, maybe there is, and I just I'm not asking the right people. So I appreciate, Christine, that you were able to fill us in on pickleball.
Yeah, and Roberta, I mean, that's what we kind of work with the senior center on and would like to expand. I mean, we as the rec department kind of took on the pickleball because people younger than what would kind of be the senior center age, quote unquote, wanted to
So yeah,
in
yeah.
kind of some other towns as well. And so we kind of embrace that for them, for the senior center, but hoping that, yeah, that could be expanded. I think any walking, you know, the schools and such is probably informal. I'm really not knowing of any formal organized thing. But again, with the rec department, with Christine on board, we're looking to her to kind of be that active adult liaison. So there's a portion under the rec department that would be able to kind of not step on the toes of the senior center and what they're offering and their demographic. But if there was a younger or people who have kind of that, you know, maybe a little more active than maybe playing bridge type mentality,
Yeah.
Of what we could offer under the rec department, and just working with them to expand those offerings and partnering on those sorts of things that we might be able to do versus them, but also letting them make sure they know the opportunities they have with our facilities to help them expand their outdoor fitness and activities as well. And that's part of what we're trying to promote as part of this new park, with it being multi-generational, with the walking paths, the open space, you know, looking down the line, if there is possible expansion and amenities that we could look at an outdoor fitness court and those sorts of things for the, you know, the senior group as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually kind of, that's great to understand how you're expanding to try to ensure that you're bringing in different demographics of people who will be looking for recreation opportunities. And I can understand why the rec department is in a good position to facilitate this rather than the senior center, because you're not limited to the age group that you're trying to work with.
Right, exactly, yep.
Yeah.
And
Okay,
my
so, yeah, go ahead.
one more question, one more question kind of thing for me. I know that this summer's not going to be the summer that it would happen, but do we do any sort of swimming with the seniors, or even any like organized swimming type stuff with the town as a whole with the Silver Lake?
Not with the seniors, no. We have some that come and do some lap swimming, but that's definitely something we could looking to talk to them about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I know when I used to live in Southbridge, I was a member of the YMCA for years as a child, as a youth and teenager there, and there was frequently, senior days that would, the seniors from town would get together and go do, either like a water aerobics class or, just different types of things like that there. And I think if Silver Lake is a venue that is appropriate, which I don't go to Silver Lake enough to know how busy it typically gets at a particular time to know if that would be good for seniors to relax and do something like that. But that was just a thought I had.
No, it's good. They probably have to get there a little earlier and the water might be a little colder, but if they're up for it, we could probably do that.
This is Christine again.
Yes.
Hi. I'd also like to, we were talking with one of the other commissioners, like, and this is more of like, I don't know if it's senior, but it's more of like, thank you, Jen, for that description. An active older adult. Bringing in like, I love to paddleboard. And I think it's something that you can do, you might be afraid, but get lessons and stuff for some of the older generation of people that want to try new things. And I mean, we're not our parents, we're not the seniors of our parents' generation anymore. I don't think it's a whole brand new mentality. So I think you're going to see a lot more seniors that are young at heart, physically able, and I would like to see some things like that over at Silver Lake even. So I'm hoping that maybe we can try to get some lessons in for paddleboarding. Maybe not this summer, but definitely next summer.
How heavily utilized are your boat launching places?
I don't have an answer, Jen.
No, I mean, I don't know. I know the Silver Lake, kind of the half little pull-off dirt parking lot, you want to call it, with a sloped ramp to the lake on Route 140 is where people will go. There is that same sort of setup at Riverview Park in Lake Ripple behind the high school. But something that's on my radar and would like to officially hopefully propose in the recent future to be getting more formal boat launches installed in ones that could be ADA accessible as well. So everything is for water access, very informal, and it would be really great to make it a little more actual and permanent.
There is also a launch at Pickleball Landing.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jen, go ahead.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say a lot of the boat launch, they are smaller. They're for smaller boats. We don't really have anything for big boats, but they're also season specific in a lot of cases, like Ekblaw even. It's hard to get in there once the weeds grow in the summer. It's kind of like limited to the seasons. And sometimes some of the other boat launches in town, they're harder to use depending on what time of year the water gets really low, or the dam, is released or not released. And so water levels play a big role too, and which ones are usable and what's not.
Yeah,
but I think an inventory of them is great, and ones that could be beefed up would be well used, because there are a lot of boats at Ekblaw and a lot of cars at Ekblaw. I think it's used, I think, almost every day by at least a couple of boats. So
I would say Silver Lake's the same way, I mean, much more visible, but and I don't know who launches behind the high school. I mean, I live on Lake Ripple, and you definitely see fishing boats launch, but yeah, I don't think it's like the best setup for anyone anywhere manner. So trying to,
So improving the boat launches that you have could be something on your list too.
yeah, it's definitely on mine.
Yeah.
Just been trying to kind of get through, these things in the past year or two, but kind of on the next list to approach here. Yeah.
Yeah, obviously you've got to finish what you've bid off this year.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah, that's interesting that because I was out a few weeks ago and I drove around to kind of be able to take in all the sites and understand what we're talking about. And I saw a lot of people out on boats and bringing their boats in, but yeah, it was really early, so the weeds haven't grown yet. So, that I might have just been there on peak boat day. I see more. I happen to live near a river myself, and I take my boat out. I see a lot more people increasingly boating now than I did in all the years prior. It's becoming really popular. So I don't know.
Now that the company we work with in Upton that runs a lot of our programs and sells and rents kayaks can't even keep them on the shelf. So people are definitely venturing out in that manner.
Yeah, yeah. And I imagine especially this year because it's an activity that a really enjoyable outdoor activity that you can do when so many other activities are kind of closed off for people. So, do you have any organizations that are advocating for or organizing or providing any boating or fishing activities in the community? Or
Like I
just
said, in
people?
general, I mean, Rec Department partners with Fin and Feather out of Upton, and they created this outdoor adventure camp quite a number of years ago that runs out of the Lions Club. And they fish and they boat and they learn how to start fires and hike and compassing and those sorts of things. And we have done some paddling nights with them over the years, quite a while ago. And then we started last year. We'll be looking at being able to do those again. And trying to figure out with him this year in this format if we can still do some fishing, boating, paddling, a boat boating nights. So it's more of a partner with that. I don't think there's anyone in town that's maybe, or a community group. It's been through them, partnering with a vendor.
Jen, do you know if there's been any sort of groups that actually officially organize the ice fishing that we have on Lake Ripple pretty much every year?
I'm trying to think who organize, like if there's like kind of a group behind it that organizes it. I mean, it hasn't happened in a couple of years.
I know I've seen a few this past year, but there was very few days where the ice was thick enough, so it's hard to.
Yeah, I mean, there's been more of like a real kind of, I feel like an official day, but I haven't seen that in a bit. So if it's been casual or if it's been a group, I definitely have not come across it myself.
Great. Are there other things that we haven't thought to ask about resource protection so we kind of hit on each of those areas that we talked about. I'm going to pull up the presentation one more time to just review what we've the slides that or the examples of needs that we've talked about. We talked about creating multi-purpose trails that connect local and regional amenities and the need for there to be a more connected system throughout town, although these trails that have been identified in prior plans present opportunities. You'd really benefit from having even more opportunities than these connecting the town. So we talked about acquiring and restoring resource areas, specifically along Silver Lake. And I'm trying to think if there were other priority areas that we raised.
One thing, this is Paul, if you
Yep.
can hear me before it
Yep.
starts to distort. I just don't want to lose sight of the fact that we've got an open space recreation project that we just currently funded, and the money's out there, and it's, in the planning stage, and that's, the common. So we didn't capture historic preservation of open
Yeah.
space recreation, but I mean, that is a piece of it.
Okay. Yeah, it's funny. I included it as an asset in the open space and recreation presentation, but I think I talk about it more in terms of a need in the historic presentation. So we'll get to it and talk more about, because there's there's an overlap. It fits in both places.
Yep, there's a lot of projects like that. Yep.
Yeah. And and we just talked about outdoor community spaces and expanding recreational opportunities for people of all ages. One thing that when I spoke with the library director, she threw out an idea that the library had proposed in the past of creating, seeing if CPA funds could be used to create an outdoor patio that could be connected with the library. It would sort of be a passive recreational use, enabling people to enjoy the library outdoors. So I thought I would bring that up since that was, she's not here and it hasn't been mentioned by anyone else.
This is Brooke. I think what she was talking about originally in the plan, they had sort of like a, not a coliseum, but kind of a, what do you call that? When it's sort of a half shell.
Amphitheater.
An amphitheater. That's right. That's right. And we've run into some funding issues there as well. So my guess is that's one of the things that is going to be on the chopping block. It was sort of, if you look at the library to the right, it would take up that section to the right facing the library down. And there'd be a little amphitheater there, and you could read books and have little plays or whatever in there. So I think that's probably what she's talking about, realizing that, funding's going to be tight, looking anywhere else you can get some money.
Yeah.
Well, see, and that's another thing that we're hoping. We're also looking at the park, the community park to offer, right? And so library could hold programming there and expand those sorts of things. So hopefully that could provide that for them as well.
Yep. Okay. So my last question that I want to ask you guys, we can, if you use the poll everywhere to give me an answer, then it will pop up this word cloud and we'll kind of see if you have similar ideas. They'll be weighted by the word cloud. Or you can just shout it out to me if you really can't use or don't have the patience to use the poll everywhere to join.
So you want us to yell something out now?
Sure.
Well, I would like, it won't happen, but I would love to see a rail trail.
Where would the rail trail go?
Where the active railroad is right now. It was not active. It was not active when I moved to town. So there's kind of a missed opportunity there. But I always like to put it in play. Like I always like to have it hang out there just in case this railroad ever stops operating. Just the connectivity of, being able to connect to other towns and other recreational spots. But again, it's not really a 5-year thing. It's a, would be
20
nice.
year.
Yeah.
Is that the MBTA or is that a different rail?
It's the Grafton and Upton Railroad. It runs from Grafton into Upton, I think all the way down to Franklin. But what Jen's saying, it really does run right through Grafton. And that had been a rail trail. Like when we talk about the roads being so narrow, I wouldn't let my daughter ride her bike to the library. We're about 2.5 miles from the library till she was about 13, 14 years old because, and even actually, I think she was older than that, just needing to be aware of traffic and having a little more awareness. But she would always say to me, if that railroad were a rail trail, you'd be letting me go. It just really would connect the whole town.
Yeah.
There's also a rail trail that was proposed, and actually some engineering was done down in South Grafton. Wasn't there that whole, there's a section, I remember Megan came to preach, she used to be the planner here. She came and gave a whole presentation. It was millions of dollars in engineering, never mind, land acquisition and the rest, to Jen's point that it'll probably never happen. But there is a proposal, and I
For
don't
a
know
bike
what
trail.
railroad it is inside. Yeah. So isn't that the same thing that you're talking about?
Well,
Is that
rail trail
different
just
kind of-
implies that it's an old railroad bed, but that
Well, that's
bike
an
trail
old
is-
railroad bed too.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I thought the one you were talking about is the one that kind of snakes through all those different towns, and it goes up and connects to the Millbury bike trail.
Well, it's part,
The
I think
Blackstone.
it was a combination of all that stuff. I mean, I don't
Okay.
know if it was a straight shot, to Cumberland, Rhode Island, or wherever it ended up in how that
Is that the
worked. I just know-
Blackstone River Trail?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I defer to Jen probably because she knows better than I do. I thought it was a railroad line as well. Maybe it wasn't, but anyway.
I think if the information on that, the most current information, I think we'd have to contact CMRCP just to see what, has been done. I think that's a project that gets started and stopped a lot because it is very ambitious.
Yeah, right. It's a project, as you started out to say, that it's not in maybe our lifetime. There's got to be some sort of huge funding from a federal source or a state source to be committed to do something like that. Just because when Megan came, the engineering just in Grafton was was close. I can't remember, but it was near $1 million, somewhere around there. That's just for engineering. So anyway.
So actually what you just brought up is CMRPC. That is potentially another partner who we ought to be including, or are they really not relevant?
The Central Massachusetts Regional Planning
Yeah.
Office. Yeah.
We do get a number of essentially co-opted hours we can use from them by our town's membership in them. The use of those hours is voted on by the planning board, but it's not a ton of hours in a given year. And they don't usually, they're usually more there for types of different assistance in terms of developing different plans or projects we need that like extra, essentially like a staff kind of help on a quick basis. We've used them for to help fill in the interim planner role before we had a new planner hired recently. So I'm not sure if we would call them a partner or
They're just a resource that you can tap into by the sounds of it. Okay. Yeah, we did identify the Blackstone National Heritage Corridor as a partner because they actually are doing planning and advocacy around a lot of your resources. Okay. All right, any other big wishes?
Well,
Great.
at least for me personally, I'll just say it out loud, is that even assuming the community park passes that town meeting, I would like to see us upgrade our existing parks and open space areas to be more accessible and accommodating to a wider range of demographics as well. That's something that I would like, but that's
No, and that's definitely on recreation's immediate radar and immediate plan to address. Our playgrounds definitely need accessible surfacing and routes. But again, the point that we're trying to add is because of their size and layout, it would never be able to accommodate a large age range and to be inclusive as what the community park would be. But we're definitely addressing our current playgrounds with the needs that they have.
Yeah, and I will say, Jen, you can correct me as well if I'm wrong on this, but in some of my conversations, I believe I was told by someone in the community, I forget, I'm blanking on the name right now, so I apologize to whoever that it was, but that there is going to be essentially a plan around the existing parks coming out in the coming months by the Recreation Commission, as far as like a general, plan about like what you're hoping to accomplish and that.
Yeah, so we're just working through that ADA transition plan and trying to rank everything from what they're saying is that immediate, priority versus, a longer term thing, and what we can address internally and what we would have to outsource and what that would mean for funding at each playground. I'd be also looking at a survey to reach out to people to maybe which parks are being used the most. And looking at, trying to address maybe fully one park versus one level of something at every park. But that's also part of the idea of what's going to happen, what we're looking to reallocate for the funds of the summer from our seasonal payroll from the beach and reallocating the money from payroll to expenses to address these needs in these facilities.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jen.
Actually, that's
Justin, that was me, Gina. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
I've been trying to be out there a little bit more, trying to get some accurate information out there. So yes, that's definitely something that we've been talking about for quite some time. So I would echo what Jen, the information that she shared.
great. Actually, it's really helpful to know that you are in the process of preparing an ADA transition plan. Is that just for your parks or for all of your public facilities?
Well, Roberta, no, that ADA transition plan was done, I think at the end of last summer.
Okay.
And that was like municipal buildings, all of the parks, playgrounds, Silver Lake, brush dump, Mill, other parks that aren't in a recreation department. So that's been completed. So the Disability Commission has become new again. So they're helping make sure these things are getting, pushed along and checked in. And so, me as a department of recreation, just trying to look at all of the ones that are under our department and summarizing and ranking the needs of all of them to address.
Okay, that's helpful. So that's another plan that we can reference. I can't promise to read it because it's really, you know best how you want to use it to prioritize your needs. But to reference that plan is something that is likely to be utilized in the future to identify your open space and recreation needs and historic preservation needs too. Okay. Anyone else have big ideas to offer? Well, I thank all of you for your time this evening. This has been very helpful discussion. And, via Joanne, please feel free to reach out to me and we can continue the conversation. If you have ideas, you can reach through Joanne to send them on to me or questions. And I appreciate your following the process. I'll probably be talking with some of you again tomorrow night and or next week when we talk about the other program areas. And for those of you who I don't see again, please, keep an eye for the draft of the plan and we'll welcome feedback as we move through the process. So,
Roberta,
yes.
Roberta,
can we put in a plug for the survey?
Yes. Yes, thank you.
Very good. All right.
Thank you. The survey for the community preservation plan is currently live. It will be live through the end of the month. And so we would encourage everyone to please share it with any friends, neighbors, community groups, neighborhood associations, anywhere in the community where people have an interest in any of these issues: open space, recreation, housing, and historic preservation. so that we'll get people's input on what the priorities are and more ideas about opportunities that can be reflected in this plan.
Where can we find that survey? I think I did one already, but if we wanted to share it, where would one find it?
It's on the Community Preservation Committee website on the town page.
Okay,
and actually, Christine, I'm actually hoping to get it on the town Facebook page again this week.
I think
it was on last week one day.
Yeah, I think that's when I did mine. My survey was up through Facebook probably. But
Yeah,
okay, thank you.
Joanne, can you or have Bob DeTomo or somebody just reach out to me when it is posted on the town's page so I can reshare it?
Sure. I
when
mean,
it's reposted?
You'll see it.
I think I might have. Yeah, it's just the way Facebook works. Sometimes you don't always see things for even up to a day or so later, unless there's more interaction with it. So if you or someone else emails me when it is live on our page, I can share it immediately, and that will help boost it to be visible to everyone.
Sure.
I'll do the same, Joanne. So.
Okay.
I did that before. I'm sorry. Probably bogged down with announcing we're closing for the summer and such. So.
Again, bigger things you were dealing with at that point, Jen.
Great. Anything else that I'm forgetting to mention?
I don't think so. Good job.
Thank you very much. So I will, good luck, everyone. We've already said goodbye. So.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.